Okay, I have a couple. Are you familiar with Alan Levine?
No, ma'am. That's a really specific. You know, somebody else, when I came over to East Tennessee, asked me about some invasive carp. That was the most specific question I've ever gotten. But no, in particular, Alan.
Have you heard about Ballad Health?
Yes.
Ballad Health is the way to win in District 1. That's the way you unite.
It's terrible, right? That's what I hear.
It's been the biggest disaster
Yep.
for us here.
Yep.
You know, we're losing. Johnson City, the biggest city in this area, in this district, 75,000 people. We no longer have a colorectal surgeon in our city because they've left because Ballad Health is such a disaster. So that's the big thing. Between that and the you know, not funding Medicaid, TennCare, is what we're dealing with here. And everybody hates it, and that's the way.
Well, I've heard very terrible reviews about that particular healthcare system. I actually was talking to somebody yesterday that has sleep apnea, and he said he can't get anybody within 100 miles, again, because, you know, there's just a dearth of care here and a dearth of options. Again, we've got to be putting more money. Healthcare is a right in my eyes. The end. And that goes for physical health and mental health, okay? I think both of those things need to be funded. I'll tell you, so on the city council, one of the things I worked on with our police force was to get their on-the-job injury stuff to cover mental health injuries. Because I've buried 4 police officers in my 2 years on city council, and the person who was standing next to one of them didn't get shot. And so she had to show up at work the next day. And I said, hey, she might need a mental health week or 2, especially if she's gonna have a gun and be arresting people. And I talked to my HR department at the city, and they were like, well, you have to actually be injured, like have been shot or have a bullet, something. And I said, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I said, in fact, I'd rather you like be winged in your arm than have something that traumatic happen, right? And I said, and the last time I checked, your brain is part of your body. So it can be injured. You can measure it on a CAT scan. I don't know when this policy was written, but we need to reconsider it. And so I asked her, I said, I want you to bring me in some cases of where you've rejected this, where I know people, you know, people needed mental health supports, they needed time off. Because we need to be giving people, especially our first responders, that time to recover. It might cost money, but mental health is health. She brought me a story about a state trooper that, or a trooper on our highway that had was working a car accident and got hit by another car and lost his leg, and his partner had to pick up his leg and put it in the car and drive it to the hospital. But he didn't get time off work. And I said, okay, so again, you can watch this crowd. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that's not okay. So we've got to make sure that we're putting funding both into physical health care and to mental health care, especially, I think, in our schools and with our kids. I am terribly worried about what's happening to this generation of boys. I'm working really hard to raise one right. But we've got to be there for them in that way. So I hear you, and I hope that we can work towards a solution that provides better care here. And here's the thing I can promise you, as your governor, I'm still gonna hold town halls. So I can come back here when I'm elected, and you can yell at me again about Ballard Healthcare being terrible.